The image appears faint at first, almost indistinct, a front and back imprint of a human figure, barely visible against the linen. But as you look closer, something begins to emerge, the outline of a crucified man. For many, it calls to mind one of the most powerful moments in history, the death and resurrection of Jesus. For centuries, this object, known as the Shroud of Turin, has been debated, doubted, and investigated. Scientists once approached it with confidence, expecting to expose it as nothing more than a medieval forgery. But something unexpected happened. Instead of being dismissed, the shroud resisted explanation. Geneticists uncovered DNA that seemed out of place on a cloth, supposedly made in the Middle Ages. Physicists encountered an image that could not be replicated by any known energy source available in the ancient world. Forensic experts identified blood evidence that pointed to extreme trauma that science only fully understands today. And then came a turning point. New dating methods suggested that the cloth may not belong to the medieval period at all, but instead traces back much earlier, possibly to the time of Christ. Every field that examined the shroud came away not with answers, but with deeper questions. The mystery first intensified in 1898. An Italian photographer, Secondo Pia, was given permission to photograph the shroud during a public exhibition. It seemed like a routine task. Working under difficult conditions with bulky equipment, he captured images onto glass plates. Later that night, as he developed the photographs in his darkroom, something astonishing appeared. Instead of a faint, blurry imprint, the negative revealed a clear, detailed face, sharp and lifelike. The features were unmistakable. Closed eyes, a defined nose, a beard, and visible signs of injury. This discovery changed everything. Normally, photographic negatives reverse light and dark, producing an unnatural-looking image. But in this case, the negative appeared more real than the original. That meant the image on the cloth itself behaved like a negative, centuries before photography even existed. This raised a troubling question. How could such an image have been created? No known artist from the medieval period possessed the knowledge or tools to produce a negative image, let alone one this precise. The shroud didn't behave like a painting. It behaved like a photographic imprint, capturing a single moment in time. As technology advanced, so did the investigation. In the 21st century, scientists began analyzing the shroud using modern genetic and forensic tools. Their goal wasn't to prove or disprove faith, but to understand the cloth's history. Researchers collected microscopic samples, dust, pollen, and organic material, from deep within the fibers. They focus on mitochondrial DNA, which can persist for thousands of years and trace geographic origins. The results were unexpected. Instead of pointing to a single region, the DNA revealed a complex mix from across the world. The Middle East, Europe, North and East Africa, and even parts of Asia. This wasn't random contamination. It formed a pattern. When mapped, the genetic traces aligned with ancient trade routes and historical records of the shroud's journey. From Jerusalem to Edessa, then to Constantinople, and eventually into Europe, the cloth appeared to have traveled through major crossroads of civilization. If authentic, this would explain the diverse DNA signatures, each one a trace left behind by countless individuals over centuries. But it also posed a challenge to the forgery theory. A medieval craftsman could not have intentionally embedded such global genetic diversity into a single piece of linen, especially long before DNA was even discovered. The plant evidence told a similar story. Botanists identified dozens of pollen species trapped in the fabric. While some were European, many originated from the Middle East, specifically regions around Jerusalem. One plant stood out, a thorny species known to grow only in a narrow area between Jerusalem and Jericho. Its pollen was heavily concentrated around the head region of the image. This detail sparked a compelling possibility. The plant structure closely matches what could have been used to form a crown of thorns. Again, this wasn't something a medieval artist could have fabricated. Pollen cannot be painted onto cloth at a microscopic level with such accuracy. It acts more like a natural fingerprint, evidence tied to a specific place. Then there was the blood. For years, skeptics argued that the stains were simply paint, but advanced testing revealed otherwise. The substance was identified as real human blood, specifically type AB. Even more striking was its chemical composition. Scientists detected markers associated with severe physical trauma, including compounds linked to muscle breakdown and extreme stress. This indicated a body subjected to intense suffering, consistent with scourging and crucifixion. Even the color of the blood raised questions. Normally, ancient blood darkens over time, yet the stains on the shroud remained reddish. Researchers found this could be explained by high levels of bilirubin, a substance produced under extreme physiological stress. In other words, the blood itself recorded a story of trauma at the biochemical level. One of the most debated pieces of evidence came from carbon dating. In 1988, tests concluded that the shroud dated to the Middle Ages, seemingly confirming it as a forgery. For years, this result shaped public opinion. But later analysis revealed a critical flaw. The sample used for testing had been taken from a repaired section of cloth, an area that had been altered centuries later. This introduced newer material into the sample, skewing the results. When newer techniques were applied, examining the linen's internal structure rather than surface contamination, the findings suggested a much older origin, consistent with the 1st century. Yet perhaps the most puzzling aspect of the shroud remains the image itself. It is not made of paint, dye, or ink. Instead, it exists as a microscopic alteration of the outermost fibers, thinner than a human hair. The discoloration appears to be caused by a chemical reaction, possibly involving heat or radiation, but no known method has successfully reproduced it. Experiments using lasers, heat, and radiation have failed to create an image with the same properties. The precision required, affecting only the surface without damaging deeper fibers, suggests an extremely controlled burst of energy. Adding to the mystery, the image contains three-dimensional information. When analyzed digitally, it can be used to reconstruct the shape of a human body with accurate depth and proportion. No known artwork possesses this feature. Other details continue to challenge conventional explanations. The wounds appear in anatomically correct locations, through the wrists rather than the palms, which aligns with modern understanding of crucifixion practices. The positioning of the body, the marks of scourging, and even subtle physiological responses all match what forensic science would expect. Some researchers have even suggested the presence of faint shapes over the eyes, resembling ancient coins from the time of Pontius Pilate. Individually, each of these details might be dismissed, but together, they form a pattern that is difficult to ignore. So, what does it all mean? To accept the shroud as a medieval forgery would require believing that someone, centuries ago, possessed knowledge far beyond their time, understanding photography before cameras existed, forensic anatomy before modern medicine, and molecular chemistry before science could measure it. It would mean creating an image that modern technology still cannot replicate, and embedding within it layers of biological, chemical, and historical data that would only be discovered hundreds of years later. Or the alternative, that the shroud is exactly what it appears to be, a relic connected to a real event in history, a moment captured not by human hands, but by something we still don't fully understand.